Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Moss, comedian extraordinaire. Before we get started, let me say Ramadan Mubarak. In advance, I'm hoping that everybody has a successful fast. Now, brothers and sisters, I'm here today to talk about the Islamic City 30-day challenge to love Allah more. What does that mean, Preacher? It means that we're all going to talk about the different ways that we can love Allah more, that we can dedicate ourselves and devote ourselves to the Most High, and in this special time of the year, Ramadan, get closer to our Lord. Now, the way I'm going to love Allah more, brothers and sisters, is I'm going to focus on correctness. Self-correctness, emotional correctness, spiritual correctness. Because I believe in this way I get closer to my Lord because I'm a lot more humble and a lot more open to His mercy and His wisdom. This was a big thing for me when I became Muslim about self-correction, especially growing up in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, hearing all the noise about what I was supposed to be as a young black man, as a young black boy. And I found this calm, if you will. This calm that was passed down for me, from my relatives, my mom, my dad, all my relatives. It was that whole idea that we could self-correct ourselves. And I found this peace in the religion of Al-Islam. Now, you can't do what I'm going to do. I mean, don't copycat. Make your own video. I already said I'm going to love Allah more because I'm going to focus on self-correction. You have an opportunity to make your own video and talk about how you are going to love Allah more. That's right. So what are you standing there for? You got a limited amount of time. Ramadan is starting in like 15 minutes. I believe that you should get out and try to figure out how you're going to love Allah more. Make a video, 2 to 3 minutes. Join the challenge for Islamic City to love Allah more. I'm Preacher Moss. In advance, Ramadan Mubarak, and I'll be seeing you throughout this 30 days. Take care. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. This is your brother, Preacher Moss, here on the Shout Out Show. I hope that you're having an excellent day, as Mondays would go. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, I hope you had a great weekend. Today's topic is something that's near and dear to my heart. I normally don't go through every juz during Ramadan. It gets a little bit tedious. You have scholars for that. But this particular juz has always been important for me for the last couple of years. Well, I want to say last maybe 10 years. Understanding somehow my capacity to have mercy and compassion towards others who are less fortunate, and also understanding the history of compassion towards the less fortunate. So today's subject matter is called Prejudice against the poor. Prejudice against the poor. And what that talks about is really a demonstrative understanding of how the poor have been treated throughout the times, particularly in Islam, throughout the times of the Talmud, the Bible, and the Quran. We're talking about the aspect of how the poor were treated, but also the importance of the poor. Not the importance of poverty, but the importance of the poor, the intrinsic understanding that these are a lifted and guided people. So I want to make sure that I'm talking to you about that. That's number one. Number two is also, and you saw the ad, we're also pushing for everybody to, either come to Permissible Laughter at Gmail for our challenge, our 30-day challenge, but also make sure as of this, I want to say this Thursday or Friday, that everybody has their stuff in so I can start sending out money for virtual iftar. I would appreciate that. So beyond that, what we are going to do is we're going to have a larger scope discussion. We will be talking about Juz 12, and I am going to take a little bit of time, not liberty, but take a little time to kind of break down a little bit the scope of prophethood, which is something that's very, very important in all the religions, talking about prophethood, but talking about its conjunction with uplifting the poor, the underserved, the oppressed. So I hope you guys don't mind me doing that today because I felt like it had a lot of gravitas for me. This was a weekend where you saw people who were going through things, whether it was natural disasters, the weather, war, and, I think for me at this particular time during Ramadan, you're probably just like you, like a lot of people when they fast, I'm just hypersensitive about things. I'm hypersensitive about things. I began to look at the world in the context of how can we protect people? How can we grow ourselves or evolve ourselves to not have the crisis that we're having now by being a little bit more aggressive and taking a little bit more initiative for the less fortunate, also not putting the less fortunate in those positions. So I don't want to hark on that too much, but we have a lot to discuss here on the Shout Out Show. So I thank you for advancing your patience, because what I want to talk about, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that I'm 100% right. I'm just going to tell you that I'm 100% sincere. So I hope that you guys will accept my sincerity in advance. Don't move. We're getting ready to start here on the Shout Out Show. Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back. Let's roll. All right, we're back. Thank you so much for your patience. And the background behind me is dedicated by my little one, Marion Moss, who shot this whole thing. I guess I can show you guys the whole thing in a minute, but she painted this whole thing, and I use it as a backdrop here on the Shout Out Show. I guess I can show you a little bit of it. She has a mosque and all of that, but we'll get to it a little bit later. We want to get to our family, our Shout Out Show family. Well, we have Sister Reed back in the building. Sister Reed, we've been praying for you. Hope that you're doing well and you're feeling better. Show's not a show without Sister Reed. So thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you, your family, your husband, and your son, Derek and Jawad, respectively. Good to see you in this space. Thank you for joining us. And let us know. Excuse me, I had one of those Ramadan burps. I apologize. And let us know that you're doing all right, Sister Reed. So you can either text me or I can call you later. My main man, Altaf Rashid, our Canadian envoy from the great city up north of Toronto, Ontario, in the great country of Canada. Thank you so much for joining us, brother. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We appreciate you being on the spot, man. Thank you for joining us. Hope everything is going well. I remember last year we had to work out, excuse me, I had to work out your allotment for the virtual iftar. So please let me know the best way to do it when you get a chance. And give a shout out to all my Canadian family up there, man. Give them the salute, give them the salams from their brother, Preacher Moss. My main man, big brother, Bilal Salahuddin. What's going on, beloved? He said we're in here. That when I say that is plural, it has to be you and the queen, Sister Sonia Salahuddin. What's going on, man? I hope you're doing well. And peace and blessings to your sons and daughters. Peace and blessings to your grandchildren. Is it 9 or 8? I can't remember. I think it's 8 grandchildren. But peace and blessings to all of them, because they're all our babies. They're your babies, they're our babies too. So I got to find a picture with your permission to show them with the little one watching the Shout Out Show too. That was such a wonderful picture. Brother Eric, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sir, how you doing, man? Coming all the way from South Carolina. Beloved, it's good to see you on the show. Brother Eric, I know it's Eric, but in DC we say Eric. Eric, good to see you on the show, man. Always a welcome addition, a welcome sight. Thank you so much. Last but not least, our executive producer, who made it in today. You cutting it tight today, sis. You cutting it tight. I'm just kidding. Shout out to Sister Satana Whitfield, our executive producer, without which we can't make this happen. And a shout out to the Shout Out Show. Brothers and sisters, we got an upgrade on the camera. This is not DLSR. This is the Elgato Facecam Pro. It's not the Pro. It's Facecam webcam. It is beautiful. If you look at it, it's beautiful. The color, the definition. We're upscaling. That's what I'm saying. We're upscaling. So much love for that. All right. If you read about Jews 12, of course, it's a story of Yusuf, Joseph, and his journey with his dreams and dealing with his brothers. And also, I want to give a shout out. My brother just popped in. Shout out to JT. Government name Johnny L. Thomas, but to me he's little brother, or better known as Ott, or known as JT. What's going on, beloved? Good to see you in the building. Hope all is well. Wa alaikum assalam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you and the family. You know, the story of Joseph is really, really important because it begins to build this whole idea of what the rest of the Jews is, which is this constant understanding that people who are oppressed have a very, very finite and intimate connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me say it again. That people who deal with levels of oppression, this is not saying anything about people who don't, but people who deal with a very, very, a finite type of depression, not depression, I'm sorry, but oppression, such as poverty, have a very, very distinct connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you read through the Quran and the Bible, even the Talmud, the impetus is how do we take care of the poor? How do we love our poor up? And Juice 12 is amazing because it gives several examples. Prophet Yusuf, his example is that he has the love of his brothers, but he also has a jealousy of his brothers, which leads him, when they were supposed to take him on a picnic, they tied him up and they threw him in a dry well, unused well. And he was picked up from the well and he was sold into slavery. Hear me now. He was sold into slavery. And in that slavery, in enslavement, in bondage, he finds the capacity to have a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that not only frees him up, but frees up the people around him. That when he's locked up, he goes through all kind of trials. Rich man's wife desires him. He says, no, Allah, I don't want that. And he gets out of that situation. He's in prison. He's interpreting people's dreams. These are things that are amazing. The things that are amazing. And eventually, he reconciles with his brothers, but he doesn't have a hard heart for what they did to him. Because his whole emphasis is that it would be dispiriting to Allah who had blessed him, number one. Then number two, it'd be dispiriting to his father who thought he was dead. Now, there's a train of thought that I think everybody should understand here. That prophets come two ways. You know the ways they come. They come as bearers of good tidings, and they come as warners. Good tidings and warners. But what's a constituency of the prophets? Ask the question, what is the constituency of the prophets? Prophet Noah, when he has his revelation, people don't deal with Noah. People don't deal with Noah because Noah has a particular type of constituency. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings, has a different type of constituency. Lut, Ibrahim, different kind of constituency. And the constituency is the believers that come out of the population of the poor. And here today, I believe if we can celebrate the acumen and the overall, I want to say, illumination and engagement of the poor in terms of their connection to God, I think it's really, really interesting to understand that throughout history, famous people who really connect with the people, understand the needs of the poor. Now, it can be positive, it can be infamous, but these people understand the connection with the poor. The scope of prophethood is interesting because it belies that the mentions of the poor throughout the Quran are a lot, but they're purposeful. And not just purposeful, but they can be repurposed. Every prophet comes to deal with who are either financially poor, real estate poor, or spiritually poor, or morally poor. The whole aspect of Lut, Ibrahim's nephew, who goes to Sodom and Gomorrah, he goes on a mission of mercy. He literally goes on a mission of mercy. And it's not to castigate the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. He tells them that there's a different way that you should be living. That his space is not to take part in the things that are going on. His is a warning, and it's a warning. And if you follow him, what he's saying is a warning, but it's also a thing of glad tidings because it gives you freedom. These are life learning and life affirming lessons that they're giving. Now, the thing that you also have to understand, if you read Jude 12, is it is a categorical, I want to say a categorical template for how all of the prophets have been rejected. 7 stories about prophets, all 7 of them rejected. You can go down the line. Luke was rejected. Yusuf was rejected. Moses was rejected. Noah was rejected. And it all comes to the fact that there is a pardon my language, there's a come to Jesus moment, because when they're rejected, the proof in the pudding is when what they've been saying all along is right in front of your face. You can't make the case that they didn't tell you. You can't frame that this love that came in terms of mercy and compassion was not real. There's an old joke about a guy who's it's a terrible shipwreck. He's hanging on a piece of wood. He says, I want the Lord to come save me. And the boat comes by and the guy goes, jump in the boat. He said, nope, I'm waiting on the Lord to save me. He said, man, a helicopter came. He said, man, grab the ladder on the helicopter. Come on. He said, nope. He said, I want the Lord to save me. Another guy pulled up in the submarine. He said, man, jump in the submarine. He goes, nope, I want the Lord to save me. And the guy drowns, and he gets to the paradise, and he goes, Lord, why'd you let me drown? The Lord said, look, man, I sent you a boat, a helicopter, and a submarine. If you can't do that, it's on you. Now, we laugh, but many times we're guilty of the same thing. That God has sent you a boat. He sent you a helicopter. He sent you a submarine. He sent you a dinghy. He sent you everything. The river or the ocean could have drained out, and you still standing there waiting for the Savior. That is the impetus and the importance of the prophets. Now, look, I'm not a scholar, okay? I'm not a scholar. But I will give it to you in these terms. That every scholar that I know, every reputable scholar is going to tell you that mankind has consistently rejected his prophets. That we cannot find the wherewithal. We can't find the je ne sais quoi to listen to their message. And their message is interesting. Because the message is study the poor, serve the poor, divine the poor. Now, why is every prophet rejected? Because people have an allergy to the poor. People are prejudiced of the poor. If the prophets catered to the rich, then they would be beloved. If the prophets said, hey, let me show you how to take $1 million and turn it into $5 million, they would be beloved. But that is the thing that they talk about, is that every prophet has come and talked about prejudice against the poor. Think about that. Every prophet has come and talked about prejudice against the poor. You see, the moral decay that we see now has to do with the fact that people are afraid of poverty. That people will break their moral souls in the pursuit of wealth that they may not even get. They may not ever attain it. There's always stories in the news about somebody that did some type of insane robbery or murder. And in the end, the take or the bounty that they got, or the booty that they got for stealing this stuff, the take, if you will, was $100. And we sit and we relent, we relent, we relent, we lament this whole thing going, well, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Because the person that you robbed was poor too. Think about that. The psychology of it. Now, if this is someone who is poor exhibiting this behavior, and they may never even get close to wealth, they may never even sniff it. Imagine the anxiety of the person who is rich. Imagine the anxiety of the person who has resources. That person, if they're not spiritually aligned correctly, that person will advocate to keep people poor in an effort to keep the poor and the poverty away from them. You know, if you ever read the story of Noah, Noah's ridiculed. You know, he's called almost pedophile. He's called a lot of things. It's because Noah would not disavow the poor. In fact, I want to say that the core of the believers that come in the ark when the rain comes, they're poor. You know why? Because poor people know how to give out some water. Ain't that right, Satana? Poor people know how to get out the rain. It was rich people going, oh, this rain ain't gonna last, but the men, poor people like, you better get on in here. Why? And ask the question why people reject the prophets. I could say one of it is vanity, the other part of it is wealth. And you know what? I'm going to continue this because we're at that mark. Let's go take a break and I'll be right back. Talking about prejudice of the poor here on a ShOUT show. Be right back.
We just need help.
Imagine if there wasn't an olive branch. Muslim Family Services at your command. The people who help people have to say, we need your donations, don't delay. We all have struggles from time to time, but leaders dedicated is what you find. Before another person sheds a tear, support Olive Branch, you don't have to fear. Olive Branch Muslim Family Services. Action you can see, compassion you can feel. Sing it with me. Ooh. Ooh.
So let me break this down a little bit, as much as I can. You know, it's interesting. When I was younger, in the mid 60s, early 70s, it was interesting because we really couldn't delineate poverty. That the poor, this is an interesting thought, that the poor that I grew up with, you know, poverty was a very personal thing. Like, this is Ramadan, everybody's trying to raise this and raise money and da-da-da-da. I'm like, but that's not the way charity really works. You know, we're a nation of Muslims and we pride ourselves on feeding the poor. But what are we really doing? We say we're going to feed the poor, but the poor got to come to the masjid. We don't take the food to them. We got school supplies, but we don't take school supplies to the people. We tell them we got to come to the masjid, or we got to come to this particular center, and we're going to box it up, and you got to come with a car. And I was just thinking about this because I was at an event one time, and I was like, you know what? This is not the dignity that belies the poor. That when I was a kid, we had poor in our neighborhood. My grandmother would just say, take this extra fish up to so-and-so when I was young. And she kept the cause anonymous. You know, maybe she didn't let me have an extra piece of fish. Grandmother, you had enough fish, she would say. And she said, take the fish up the street. And I would take it up the street. And that person would say, thank you. That person didn't say, thank you, I'm poor. That person said, thank you. And it was a code of dignity. You know, we are very flashy. You know, when poor people are poor, they don't sit around going, ooh, I hope somebody have a fundraiser about us. Oh, I hope they raise a lot of money because I got bills to pay. Poverty is immediate. And as a comedian, I can vouch that there were times when I looked at my bank account, the money I was putting out and the money I was taking in, going, damn, I might be poor. And it was humbling. When I'm around those who are less fortunate or struggling, I'm humble. I'm going to tell you why. Because they may be less fortunate, but the level of grit, the level of I'm going to make it to another day, the level of I'm I got these two dice and I'm gonna keep shaking them till my number comes up. It's amazing. It's 100% amazing. I'm gonna do a program on here towards the end of Ramadan that's called Dua of the Slave. It's called Dua of the Slave. And the reason it's called that, because you begin to understand the poor in this country. And if you understand the poor in this country, you understand how rich they were. How metaphysically they were superior to a lot of us right here, right now, today, and tomorrow. That there's a mercy placed on the poor. When I used to teach school, and I learned my after the kids wore your boy out, and I used to go see them in their homes. Well, the feeling I used to get was I would come to their homes. And what was cool is they were not ashamed of their homes because I wasn't ashamed of their homes. And it's hard to kind of articulate, but it was interesting to look a kid in the eye and go, I know you're going through it, but I'm here for you. That kids who didn't have the uniforms. I remember another teacher, my main man, Anthony Brown, we would go to the store and buy uniforms and pants and socks and underwear and deodorant for the kids and tell them, here's a bag that you take here, bring that bag back, we'll wash the clothes. And we did that for an entire year. Here's a bag of clean clothes, bring us the dirty clothes, we'll wash them, bit bam boom. And we spent quite a bit of our teacher's salary. But you know what? I never, ever, ever regretted doing it. Because that child is different. See, the child that comes out of poverty, or the prophet that leads the poor out of poverty, that's a different type. That's a thing we don't see. There's Cornel West has that quote that you can't lead the people if you don't love the people, and you can't save the people if you won't serve the people. It is so true. It is so true. And when he's talking about, prophetic tradition. In Islam, we talk about, theological positioning. We talk about kalam, but this is something that is so fundamental that it ties in everything that has to do with prophethood. That there are no prophets who do not recognize the importance and the attention that has to be paid to the poor. Now, on the flip side, everybody who rejects the prophets, guess what they do? They're prejudiced against the poor. Plain and simple. If you remove a prophet, you will see that the poor are objectified and they are oppressed. And what makes it criminal is that they're oppressed and they have nothing to give. Think about that. So I'm not going to go too much deeper on this because I think I could go probably another hour talking about this whole thing. We got Mama San. She's hitting it. She is back in the building. I didn't even see that. She said, hello, SOS family. I really thank you for your prayers. I received them. Yes, I want to say that I am a witness that she received those prayers. I can say it was a little touchy with Mama San when I showed up. Mama San can't talk and I can't understand what she's saying. I'm going to tell you, my heart was like, ooh, but I saw her dig in. I saw her dig in. I saw her reach back. And Mama, I saw you reach back to when you were poor. I really saw you reach back to when you were poor. And you said, this is all I got. Because my mom used to tell me that when she was a child, they only had one pair of shoes to wear for the whole year. You have 2 outfits. And that outfit had to be ironed and clean. You wear that the whole year. And she took that same approach about her health. We only have one life. So you're going to fight for it. You're going to adjust for it. You're going to make it the best that it could be at that place. And if it's not what you want, you have to understand that's what God wants you to have. So buckle up. So look, we talked about prejudice against the poor, but we talked about it in the scope of Jews 12, which is about prophetic tradition, was the fact that we've had a tradition where people have discredited and they've rejected the prophets. And they reject the prophets in the space. When they do it, they prejudice the poor because the prophets advocate for the poor. The poor follow the prophets. The prophets don't follow the rich. So listen, have a great day. I'm out of here. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sorry if my gaze was off a little bit. I got a new camera. Alhamdulillah. And shout out to El Gato. See you guys tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.